associated with UBL for nearly 2 decades and was responsible for incubating new business processes across functioning verticals, including setting up the analytics and the sales enablement practices. Indonesia, a country of 17,000 islands and over 270 million consumers, has shown extraordinary resilience in the face of COVID. But now the question arises, how is this resilience shaping the face of retail in Indonesia? In today's webinar organized by Bizom on the growth opportunities for FMCG in Indonesia, we have an eminent panel of FMCG experts joining us from Indonesia. We will discuss how the consumer market and the route to markets have evolved and how technology has advanced to match the market requirements. We have with us Binayak Bose, Sales Director of Reckitt Indonesia, Hendra Ricky Tambunan, Route to Market Head for PT Kino Industries, and Harshit Bora, Business Head for Asia Pacific for Bizom. I will request my colleagues to briefly introduce themselves. So over to Binayak.
Hi everyone, very nice to be here. So just to introduce myself, so I've been with Reckitt for almost 12.5 years now. I started off as a summer trainee in 2010. And then I did a few roles in India as an area sales manager in the west of India, then in the south of India. Then I moved on to trade marketing at the head office. I was there for about a few years. Then I was managing North Zone, which is UP, Uttarakhand, Nepal, Rajasthan, which is one of the largest zones of India for a few years. Then I moved to Thailand as a head of trade marketing in Jan 2019. So that was really my first exposure to the entire completely different culture and environment, and also a different market landscape of Southeast Asia. Motivators are different, categories are different, the way the market works is quite different, the channels are quite different. So that was my first experience of working in Southeast Asia for about 3 years. Then I did eB2B role, which was a global role with Reckitt, but we'll talk a bit more about eB2B maybe later on during the show. And I moved to Indonesia as a sales director in June of last year. So it's been a little less than a year right now.
That's a rich and diverse experience across different emerging markets, which I think really will add rich color to our discussions today. Ricky, can you tell us something about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Perry. So, hi everybody. Just to give a short introduction about me. So, my name is Ricky Tambunan. You can call me Ricky. So, for the last 15 years, my career experience is basically in Indonesia. So, moving from one company, different company, and also different categories to different categories. So, I'm starting with the local company for the pharmaceutical company, which is pharma product, but focus on the OTC product. So goes to the outlet pharma and also GT retail. Almost 4 years and focus on the sales operation. After that, moving to the another different categories. This is a dairy food, dairy product. So I'm joined with the Friesland Flag Indonesia, subsidiary for the Friesland Campina from Holland. So around 9 years, and it's a growth experience with me because starting from another, different categories from pharma, and in Friesland Flag, I have a few roles from the sales operation, trade marketing, key account, and also sales development. After 9 years, I'm moving to another categories. Again, this is an advantage for me, because I'm learning again with the different categories, non-food, focus on the personal care and home care with hygiene also. Some product, I guess, with the competitor with Binayak, company. So I joined for the 3 years for Godrej Indonesia as a road to market head. And after 3 years, lastly, my current role is as a road to market in one local company with unique, opportunities, because Kino Indonesia have a different categories in one company. We have beverage, food, non-food, and also pet food. So most likely that is my short introduction. Thank you, everyone.
So basically, we have with us an Indonesia expert who understands the Indonesian market very deeply. I would ask Harshit to tell us something about himself.
Thank you, Perry. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. I'm Harshit Bora, and I've been working with Bizom for around 6 years, helping global FMCG brands to transform their route to market operations and also build sustainable future-ready supply chain. In my time here, I have worked with Bizom with more than 60 companies in different countries like Egypt, India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Thank you, Perry.
So we have the data and technology contribution expert with us. So I think we've got a very rich panel, and I would expect to see a very dynamic discussion going forward. Just to share with all the guests, how would we expect this to play out? You can type in your questions if there are any issues that you want to flag off or raise in the chat panel. And at the end of our discussion, we will take any additional questions which are there. We will try to address your queries and your questions if relevant within the discussion itself. And if they are not covered during the discussion, we will definitely address each of them towards the end of the discussion. So diving straight into the topic at hand, Binayak, as a leading player in the FMCG sector, and having seen markets like Thailand, India, Nepal, and Indonesia, how have you seen the market itself, how have you seen the FMCG sector evolve from pre-COVID to the post-COVID era? Are there some similarities, some common patterns across these emerging markets? Are there some unique differences in some markets? Could you share something about that with us?
Sure. So basically, I went out of India before the pandemic hit. So I really don't know what happened in detail during the pandemic, but I can give you a brief understanding of the three markets where I've mostly worked. So India is largely a general trade market with MT and e-commerce is growing salience really fast, but it still remains a dominant GT market, Then when I moved to Thailand, it's mostly a dominant modern trade environment. Of course, GT does exist, especially for categories like bar soap and food, snacks, etc. GT is quite big, but the market is a bit more developed and more towards MT. And it also has an interesting large channel, which is convenience channel, which is the 7-Elevens of the world. Now, when I look at Indonesia, it's actually a bit of a mix between India and Thailand. It's got its own developed side, which has modern trade, convenience, health and beauty, e-commerce, large e-commerce players. But it also has a very, very large traditional trade and very large general trade market. And Indonesian geography is unique in itself because it has 17,000 islands. The route to market is very complicated. Delivery times and lead times can be really complicated. Like if I compare with India and with Thailand, it's mostly one geography. So it's land can connect most of the parts of the country. But in Indonesia, you'll have to connect with a mix of land, sea, all of that. So it becomes much, much more complicated in terms of go-to-market. And that's why you see all the channels are quite equally spread out and quite big, because there's no one channel which can serve the entire Indonesian market. If I talk a bit about COVID, most of the time during COVID, I spent in Thailand. So when COVID hit, the first thing that we saw, I guess, all over the world is that there was a very fast need for digital transformation. A lot of sales moved to online. You saw a lot of on-demand emerging, a lot of, B2C, B2B, all kinds of online players, digital players emerging, and people were actually shopping online because they didn't want to go out. The second interesting thing you saw is the convenience channel started growing a lot of importance, because that became the shopper choice, because it's available near the house. You just walk across, quickly pick up what you want and get back. And the channel which got impacted the most was the large formats of hyper super, the large modern trade formats, where companies invest a lot of money on the shelf, displays, merchandisers, and all the ROIs came crashing down because you don't have footfall, you don't have people visiting. So these are the two interesting things that happened. So on one hand, hyper super started going down. On the other hand, convenience and e-commerce started really going up. And the convenience channel also smartly started keeping a larger assortment, larger sizes of products to cater to the needs of not just convenience, but also stock up. Now, if I just compare a bit with Indonesia, Indonesian convenience channel is a bit unique compared to Thailand convenience channel, because in Indonesia you have the Alpha Marts and Indomarts, but they also serve as a shopper destination for groceries and stock up and consumption. In Thailand, you won't really find large packs or stock up packs in the convenience channel, but you'll be surprised to see, at least I was surprised when I moved from Thailand to Indonesia, to see that even the large pack sizes exist and people actually do their monthly groceries also from Alpha Marts and Indomarts, and they have the best offers running at some point of time. And the third thing that was very interesting was general trade also started becoming important as the initial fear of COVID started going down. People started adjusting to the new normal. That time we saw traditional trade really picking up because people wanted to go back to their neighborhood stores. People wanted to go back to their proximity stores. They wanted to get back to having that kind of a connection, customized assortment, and that's where GT is the best. You have the best relationship in the GT channel between the consumer and the seller. So broadly, this is how the world in Southeast Asia moved, from pre-COVID to COVID and then to post-COVID. And now, of course, Hyper Super and all the channels are slowly coming back, so now things are getting more and more normal like before. But I do see that e-commerce, convenience, traditional trade have gained an importance which is here to stay for a long time.
Ricky, you possibly have the longest exposure to the. I think somebody's mic. Binayak, if you can. Okay, sorry. Ricky, as I said, you possibly have the longest exposure to the Indonesian market, and you would have seen consumer purchase behavior itself evolve over the years. How have you seen this evolution? Can you throw some light on how consumer behavior itself in purchases have changed, and how has the trade engagement with consumers changed over the years?
Yeah, thank you, Perry. So basically, if we talk about COVID, so I guess in Indonesia, it will be similar also with the other countries. So basically, if we talk about pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID, so most likely the one that I want to say is basically during COVID is everything is stay at home, right? So buying limited virtual, online, and etc. But if we talk about post-COVID, it's like a copy-paste between pre-COVID. So, social, offline, travel, active sport, eating, and, experiential shopping is coming. So most likely consumer is go back to the mall, to the supermarket and store. But if I want to say that the face of Indonesia consumer has changed, is basically there are 4 parts basically. Number one is basically changing face of the consumer. So, in this part, higher income, in middle class, woman explosion in the workplace, and then how millennials are taking over basically. And if we talk about the new patterns of the personal consumption, basically, like Binayak said that currently is, increase in convenience, and then every consumer or shoppers is focused on health and wellness, and then how to look at the high brands and also lifestyle. And the thing is basically, again, the one that I mentioned, because now post-COVID is basically copy-paste before pandemic is, consumer is focused on shopping experience, basically. The interesting thing is basically technology is being part of this changing, basically, because mobile world, digital profiles become coming, and then how social media driven consumption, basically, especially for, millennials and women actually. But the other part is basically, urbanization and infrastructure driver is basically it's there. Is urbanization, direct to consumer, and distribution is kept up because consumer is go back to the normal. So because in Indonesia, like Binayak said, that is GT is very very clear. So the opportunity is there. So if we divide it into, the two big channel or the three big part is basically, if we talk about MT, the behavior is basically still come back again. So how they are coming with the physical, visiting to the stores, right? At the same time, MT how driving their enhancement about the digital, supporting to the consumer. The interesting thing is basically, if we talk about the GT, the things is coming is basically because, online or the digital is coming. So many, a new, platform is coming to the GT to capture the potential of the GT. We call it O2O, offline to online or online to offline, because right now we know, Mitra Bukalapak, Gudang ada, and then the other part, right? So they want to stay close to the market because they understand that the potential of GT in Indonesia is very big. The other hand is, I know that, when COVID is coming, I mean, during COVID, basically omni-channel or, online or e-commerce is very, very, spike on. But unfortunately right now, because the normal is come back again, and the physical and the experience shopping is come back again like before pandemic, I guess, e-commerce how to drive and make more another attractive, because many consumer will trying to compare to the other, because even the reseller in GT is coming. So most likely the change is, in my opinion, is like that, Perry.
Binayak, from a perspective of FMCG companies, when they look at these trends, both of consumer purchase behavior and the evolution of the market, how are they reacting, or how are they shaping their strategies to suit this context?
I think from an FMCG company's point of view, how I would say is that there's one thing, and I'm talking mostly from sales side first. In terms of the capability of the sales team, modern trade is still going to be very, very important to drive the right capability, to have the right joint business planning, to have the right people to manage trading terms, contracts, and to keep growing that business. But the two other parts that I'd like to mention from an FMCG side, which one is gaining importance, is managing e-commerce and omni-channel. So now the consumers' touch points are now moving more and more seamless between online and offline. Like most of the retailers now also have their .com websites or their applications, like Click Indo, like Alpha Gift, etc., Medicring, Watson's, Guardian, you name it, and they're all building these capabilities. And from an FMCG sales organization, we have to be very, very fast to stay ahead of the curve, that we are partnering with these opportunities, and we're also driving omni-channel the right way. So that will be the second part. The third part from a sales side, from an FMCG strategy, would be to continuously see how we can improve our go-to-market, our route to market, especially in countries like India or Indonesia, where GT is still a very, very big part. Like FMCG companies have anywhere between 500 to 1500 people going to the market every day. So to give them the right kind of tools to make sure they are having the right productivity, effectiveness, the right calls, tracking the must stock list, etc., all of that. So driving execution in store will continue to be a very, very important pillar from a sales side. And now, if I just look at from an overall FMCG company point of view, most important is to understand how consumers are changing. Are they looking for different assortment? Are they looking for different deal, different basket, different behavior in terms of where they are going to shop, etc., etc. So that's how I would put it in a nutshell from an FMCG point of view.
Ricky, if you were to take that into consideration, and given the fact that Indonesia is not just one landmass, is there just one Indonesian market? Are there multiple kind of markets? Are the strategies to route to market the same, or do you find that itself changing? And what is shaping what? I mean, are consumer behaviors and their trends changing how the channels are evolving, or are the channel development shaping how consumers behave? So especially if you were to look in the light of, the modern trade development, the GT dominance, etc.
Yeah, so I guess if we talk about the Indonesian market, like, Binayak said that should be the Indonesian market is leading by GT, because we know the demography is basically island to island. And again, the challenge is basically, if we talk about go to market or road to market Indonesia, is basically, about the logistic itself. But again, if the question goes to the, how do we describe on Indonesia, basically, the focus is basically on Java Island, because the population is there, the high gas consumption is there. And the things is basically coming from the FMCG company is basically, if they want to capture the chance of behavior of the purchase is basically how to, ensure that company have to set up the maximum of the distribution point. Because in Java is everything is cheap right now, infrastructure is there, right? So the sustainable business is basically in Java. Number one is how to capture the MT, because MT is most likely in Java, in Alfamart, Indomart, and etc. But the other part is basically how to capture the potential of GT of Indonesia is outside of Java, because we know as a FMCG company, the sustainable business is coming from Java, but the growth actually coming from outside Java. We know Sumatra, we know Sulawesi, Kalimantan, and Indonesia. We know that the population is less than Java, but I guess the opportunity is there because the logistic is become the issue. So that's why, when the MT is very less outside Java, and then GT is become the choices for the the consumer. At the other hand is basically how, like I said that platform is coming to capture the GT. So outside Java, people is also coming to the online, because resellers is also there. So as a baseline, I guess all the FMCG company will understand that one. And the things is basically how digital or technology will help the FMCG company to describe that one. How they are looking at the assortment, which area, which consumer, what kind of the customer, and then how to again to crack the opportunity outside the Java Island.
Continuing to Ricky, I'm just taking a question from Nitin Mengi,
Yeah, sure.
who wants to know, for a large established consumer company in Indonesia, what would be the right amount of B2C distributors to have on the ground? Is there any kind of a guideline or any kind of thinking that you have around that?
Sorry, can you pardon, please?
The question is, for a large established consumer company in Indonesia, what would be the right amount of distributors, B2C distributors, to have on the ground? Is there any right formula, or it depends upon the case to case?
Yeah, so I guess if we talk about the number of the distributor, I guess if we talk for the whole categories, because like I said, because in my role, actually in my current company, it's quite different for the, for the benchmarking as the market FMCG doing right now as a distributor. Because if we talk number of distributor for the, regular, I guess around 150 until 200 distribution point, yeah, we call it distribution point, is actually able to capture the opportunity of the Java and outside Java. But the question is, what is the scale? Because unfortunately, if we talk about the FMCG company, if we talk about Java, it is okay, because maybe around 2-3 million as a less number of distributor turnover. But unfortunately, if we talk about outside Java, let's say like Sulawesi, Kalimantan, and East Indonesia, I think the struggling is basically the infrastructure, it's distributor itself, and how to have a capability of the distributor to crack or to capture the potential. So that's why in Java, most likely they put the maximum one. So every province, kabupaten, they will put the distributor, but outside Java, they are trying to use two kind of the approach of road to market. And the other is basically with the another hands. So we call it, sub distributor, wholesaler active, freelance, or even traders, something like that, Perry.
Okay, thank you, Ricky. Just to understand a little bit of the market, and there's a question which is around food. Is the share of GT and MT for food items significantly different from the overall trade distribution? Is food items more likely to be distributed through GT as compared to the overall FMCG sector? Do we have any idea around that, Binayak?
So I don't have any data around that because we don't deal with food items, but I definitely could share some idea based on my experience on FMCG here. So I think this distribution or the channel salience for food would be slightly more towards GT because the rotation, the proximity, like I said, neighborhood kind of stores will probably be holding more food items because they'll be rotating faster, shelf life, etc. will be easier to manage. Also, the route to market is such in Indonesia that the cost to serve for a DC to a GT store would probably be lower than a central DC in Java servicing it all over Indonesia. So I would assume GT would play a very important part in the food sector. And just picking up from what the earlier question also was, if I could just add a point on that. So I don't think there's any right answer in terms of how many distributors, but like Ricky mentioned, it's about the DCs or the distribution points that you have. So the more and more distribution points you can have, yes, definitely you can go deeper and deeper. It comes down to your scale and it comes down to what is your cost to serve. So if you have a large scale, like some of the top FMCG companies, you can also have 500, 600 DCs, right? If you're a middle company, you could have maybe 150, 200. If you're just starting off, maybe 30, 40 is enough. And then you work with wholesalers and, like he said, traders, freelancers. There are many, many options available here because trade is very fragmented. And also right now we see that there are a lot of e-commerce platforms like eB2B platforms who are also trying to partner with sellers in different places, because definitely sitting in Java or Jakarta, you cannot manage the delivery cost of Sulawesi, Kalimantan, etc. So in the future, you would probably see more local sellers selling using platforms, but based out of Sulawesi, Kalimantan, Sumatra, etc., etc. So yeah, I just wanted to add that point also to the previous question.
Yeah, thanks, Binayak, for that. And would that,
sorry, Perry, just to add what Binayak said, that recognize what your question before is basically if you talk about the food, in my experience is basically GT is higher than MT. I guess maybe around 70% GT and 30% in MT, I guess, yeah, in my experience. But if we talk about non-food, like in my current company, we have non-food. I would say that MT will be higher than GT because, if we talk about non-food, we talk about many SKUs, right? And the scale of the SKUs will be fit with the modern trade rather than GT, because GT is very simple, straightforward, and they are trying to carry very less of the, non-fast moving product. So that's why if we talk about non-food will goes to the MT, food will be goes to the GT, and beverage, I guess 50%, 50%, but I guess most likely will goes to the GT because a cheaper product will goes to GT, very segmented in MT. There is the additional from me, Barry, please.
Thank you, Ricky. I guess so. Some of the points that you have made would also be the criteria for deciding when an area will need a distributor or sub-distributor?
Yeah, so, okay, so basically the answer is, number one is, I guess, we need to make the clear, decision for the company. I mean, how do we set up the road to market itself? Basically, the first question is basically how percentage that we want to cover as a direct coverage, basically. And then after that, we will recognize where is the area that we want to play. Because we know that, as I mentioned, is Java is most likely the contribution, and the rest is basically outside from Java. But if the question is how or when we want to set up the distributor and when we decide the sub-dis, basically the one that I understand and the right experience that I doing right now is basically primary city will goes to distributor, primary city. Right, secondary city we can go with the distributor or the sub-dis, because the question is if we want to cover the secondary city or the tertiary city or the remote area. Actually, again in Indonesia, the struggling is basically cost of logistics, right? Most likely coming from Jakarta. So hence we need the cut of the the process of the distribution. So when we have, let's say if we talk about, Aceh, right? Aceh, we have Sabang. So if we want to cover Sabang from Jakarta, it can be. It's very high cost, and the minimum of MOQ will not ever covered by the distributor. So that's why we need to put sub-dis there. The second one is basically the distance between the primary city to the secondary city is around maybe 50 until 60 kilometers, because salesman will only able to capture the outlet from start and end is around 30 kilometers. So there is the way that we are looking at how to when we put the distributor and when we put the sub-dis.
Thanks, Ricky.
One thing that I can probably add to what Ricky is saying is to decide where you need to put a distributor or a sub-distributor. You could also check two other things. One, you could check a population of a particular area. You could benchmark versus population, because typically the number of stores you will see a good correlation with the population. And the second, what you can do is you can also benchmark versus, let's say, any metric. It can be GDP, it can be market size, it can be category size, just to understand what is the cost versus benefit of putting a distributor model at a particular place. So I would say that apart from what Ricky mentioned, on top you can do a benchmark versus population or any other value metric like GDP or size of category.
Correct. Just to add maybe one part, Perry, because it's an interesting discussion. So another thing is basically maybe we can also see or compare with the competitor, because what I understand and the way I'm looking at currently is basically when the competitor is there, then we have to figure out how us as a as a FMCG company also able to put our distribution point there, whether distributor or sub-dis or anything else. So I guess learn from the competitor and trying to figure out because if we talk the small city or small area, basically the player is very limited, and I guess it will be the same for the other company. Thank you.
Thanks. Harshit, we've been hearing a lot of references to digital technology, e-commerce, etc. How do you see that shaping up, data and technology shaping up in the marketplace in terms of reaching consumers with products and goods of FMCG?
Very good thing. So what has happened is during this pandemic, this pandemic gave a big boost to adoption of digital products, not at the company level, but even at the individual level. Like as a person, we started using applications more and more. With this, what happened is we could capture a lot of data and then turn that data into daily insights. For example, it's not a FMCG related example, but I like to tell one example of my mother. So she is using this application to track how many steps she is walking every day. Now the application gives her beautiful insights on how much she is doing every day and how can she achieve her target on a day-to-day basis. Similarly, now what she is using this analytics to achieve her daily goal in a more strategic way. If you ask me, 3 years, 4 years back, was this possible or would she have done this? My answer is no. But this pandemic gave us a break, from our daily routine, gave us a time and opportunity to make digital products as our friends and as a partner in our day-to-day life. So similarly, in a salesman's life who is in the field, or the supervisor or the area manager or top managers, digital and data-driven decisions have become a partner in their daily growth, giving salesmen the power in their hands, to check and track their daily performance and use this, data in the market to, perform more in a better way in terms of more sales, better execution, better market growth, and so on. So in today's world, technology has become, a very important part. Even for brand side, they're using technology to properly, forecast what is the demand that is going to come, what are the inventory levels at every, stockist point. So they're using this sort of technology to use day to day on, to do take decisions on day-to-day basis. Also, when we talk about, like what Ricky was mentioning, that social media has become very important. So brands are also using that data, putting to their, what is happening on the social media, and then according to, what is stock availability of those, products in their DC points, they're tracking that data to see whether they will be able to, fulfill the demands, or are they, forecasting proper demand that is going to come in near future. So, a lot of companies are using data seamlessly across all the channels to predict better demand and, to have a better seamless experience for the customers.
I will take that point and try to dive a little deeper into that, both for Binayak and for Ricky. Binayak, specifically from the FMCG player side, from the FMCG company's side, what benefits and what kind of expectations do you think FMCG players have from data and technology?
I think data is currency, right? So data is like one of the most important things that all companies today, be it FMCG, be it tech company, be it electronics company, any other company is looking for different types of data to make improvements to their offerings and services. So from an FMCG point of view, I would actually break data into three parts. So one is the data required, or the data enablement to drive sales, which is basically frontline people, sales representative, distributor, sales rep, going to the market, using handhelds, using technology, using data to drive sales, to make choices on the spot to drive execution. So that's one part of data which flows back to us real time, and we see how sales is moving, etc., from an execution point. Then the second part of data would be more to understand the channel, the market, the category, which is basically offtake data from our customers, to understand how the basket size is evolving, what's happening to frequency, what's happening to the movement of the channel, etc. That's something, but all related to data which is actual sellout, right? So that's another kind of data that is going to be very interesting at all points. And the third one, to understand consumer behavior in terms of now we also have e-commerce data, right? We know traffic, we know page views, we know people who clicked but did not buy, people who went to a page but did not click. All of that data also helps us to understand the consumer behavior and the route that the shopper is taking. Why did the shopper click there? Did he finally buy, not buy? And the most interesting part is that companies are trying to also create omni-channel or seamless data integrations. Like, for example, I won't name the retailer, but there's a retailer in Thailand who's actually trying to map consumers who went to the store, and did the same consumer also go on the application, and did the same consumer buy something different from the app versus the store, or did they see the app and then go to the store? So there's no end to the kind of things that we can do today with data. So I would say that the focus from an FMCG player will be on both sides. One is to make sure our sellers are able to execute better with the help of data. And two is to make sure that we are continuously understanding our consumer better by looking at where is the shopper going, what are they buying, why this, why not that, and to make our offerings even more streamlined.
Ricky, from a channel perspective, when you see the channel partners, whether they be in GT or MT or any other channel, how do you think they are consuming or using data and technology, and what do you think are their expectations from the channel partners' perspective, the channel owners' perspective?
Yeah, so basically, if I talk about data and technology, so basically, number one is, again, in my opinion, is basically how to to the company to understand about the consumer and the customer itself, right? Because data and technology, the biggest needed that I understand right now, because master customer is, like Binayak said, is currency, but what I'm saying is the master customer is money, right? If you have the master customer, you understand the customer and the consumer and the customer, then you can create the route to market, the proper or the clear route to market, how to cover the consumer, how to cover the customer. And then again, this is to bring the alignment between all the stakeholders in the company. So from the sales perspective, the trade marketing, the marketing, even from the other part, actually. So if we talk about that one, then how customer or channel will use this one? Actually, this is like an a good collaboration between consumer or customer with the FMCG company, because you will win the customer or the shopper and also win the channel if you have the clear data that transform to the information to the customer or to the consumer. So right now, I guess most likely the top FMCG companies in Indonesia is trying to stay close with the consumer or the customer with the data that coming from the technology. Perry.
Thanks, Ricky. Harshit, from what Binayak and Ricky have shared with us, what do you think will be the key levers for success for the different stakeholders, whether the FMCG players, whether the channel partners? How do you see that shaping up?
Perry, so what I think from my perspective, there would be three growth levers for FMCG. One would be the accessibility of real-time data in the hands of sales team, and use of AI to take the data-driven decisions would be one of the key factor for key success factors for FMCG growth. And any first movers in this area would be having a strategic advantage over the competitors. So this would be one of the key levers. Second would be not to just digitalize your route to market in bits and pieces, but to use ROI proven integrated RTM platform which covers all your channels, like your sales force automation, your retailer automation, or customer automation, your distributor automation, and create something a seamless omni-channel supply chain experience for all your stakeholders. So that would be second one. And the third one would be optimizing the operation, looking at the fragmented and dynamic country like Indonesia. Optimization in operations would be a key differentiator, and hence integrated tools like demand forecasting, auto replenishment systems, route optimization will also be part of it, of the success criteria. Adding to that, there would be also buy now pay later, which is a a term that is being used very often now. That will also be in near future will become a very important part, because that will help retailers give that access to working capital to them. So I think this would have a significant impact on how the growth for FMCG, evolves in next couple of years in Indonesia.
Binayak, would you want to add anything to that?
No, I think broadly we've covered most of this part on the data. So I completely agree with Harshit, because like Ricky mentioned, like I mentioned earlier, GT is a very important part. Lots and lots of people are spending hours every day going to the market, similar to India, similar in Indonesia, and having real-time data, AI-enabled decision making. It will definitely unlock the growth in the GT channel. And just one thing to add, maybe we should also be cognizant of the fact that there's very soon going to be an era where consumers, not just consumers, but also retailers and wholesalers will be looking at e-commerce platforms, eB2B platforms, and that's also going to come very soon. So not just sellers using data, but retailers and wholesalers who might also be sitting at their shop and making orders and purchases, buy now, pay later, and all the things that Harshit mentioned. All of that might move to eB2B models also sooner or later.
Ricky, what is your perspective if you want to add something, especially given that Indonesia is a geographically fragmented market, very cash conscious, channel partners, value critical, etc. What do you see from your perspective?
Yeah, so if we talk about sales as a result, the one that I understand is basically it's not only talking about distribution. So we have to understand, the consumer and then the customer, those kind of thing is coming from the collaborating with other function. So if we want to win the battle or win the market in Indonesia, is basically collaboration and speed will be the key. And if you want to get that kind of things, is basically you have to using technology. So the things is basically the one that I understand is basically when you have the technology in your hand, and then you can able to describe how to to cover the Indonesian market. So what is the assortment? What is the area of the battle? What is most preferred, category that you want to play? Because basically there are 2 or 3 parts that we want to align. One is as a company, FMCG company, which is have the product. The secondly is basically the distributor itself. And lastly is basically the most important thing is how to drive the warrior of the sales is basically salesman. So these 3 kinds of things is basically able to align to engage through the technology, because technology will share the correct information, and we can review the trend. We can directly, like Binayak said, right? This is like an online. You can get and gathering the information directly, and you can drive the distributor your part as a partner, and also the salesman to understand the situation and then get the solution. So directly something like that.
There is a question from UD Clement. It says, knowing the demographic and geographic challenge, fragmented GT retailers, etc., can you share your experience on how to access the market in the most efficient and practical manner?
Okay, so basically, the question will be most likely if we talk Indonesian market, will goes to the retailer. Again, in my opinion, is basically again the first thing first is basically the company have to make the decision. So what is the objective, which is direct and indirect distribution. So if we talk about the direct distribution, basically the one that I mentioned is basically talking about primary city. The second one is if we talk about the secondary city, will be similar with the primary city, but again retailer outside there is the big challenge actually. So my experience when access to the market more efficient and practical is basically setting the proper number of salesmen to cover direct distribution, and using another hand to capture the indirect distribution. So we can cover all the things and then directly goes to the retailer basically. The second one is basically do not fast as you think to put into the big wholesaler, because many RTM teams or sales team, I don't know, maybe Binayak, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes salespeople will directly put on the big wholesaler, and they expected that the big wholesaler will try to make to the lower one, I mean to the lower retailers. But again, in my experience, it will not coming as long as your product is not yet established in the market. So there is the things, the one that I want to share.
Two questions for Binayak, one from UD Clements and one from Ashish. For GT distribution strategy, what is your view on national distributor versus multi-district or multi-area distributors? And the other question is, what is your view on distributors' investment in redistribution, like salespeople, distributor vehicle? Is that done by distributors alone or in partnership with the FMCG companies?
So on the first question, there's really no right answer, because there are successful companies working with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 large distributors with multi-distribution points. And there are also very successful companies working with lots and lots of multi-distributors. So there's really no one answer to the first question. At least I haven't figured out that answer, because it seems like both ways can be done. It depends on the company's strategy. It depends on the capability of the company, whether they would like to maintain a relationship with only 3 or 4 large distributors, or whether they have the capability to maintain relationships and partnerships with 100, 200 distributors. It depends on the strategy. So there is no one answer, I would say, to the first question. To the second question also, similarly, so I think it comes down to, in any business, everybody has an expectation of profit or margin in any business, be it a company, be it a distributor. Everybody is putting in their money and their effort and their hard work to make some money in return, right? So there is no one model also to the second question. It's not like, yes, the model is that distributor will pay this, or the model is distributor will not pay this. It's not like that. Distributor will have an expectation of a particular earning from a business. Based on that expectation, the company will have an expectation on the requirement of how deep the distributor needs to go. Does he need to service only to wholesale? Does he need to service into large number of stores? Does he need to only pick up and drop? Or does he need to actually go to the market and convince? So depending on the strategy, I think this is something that people can negotiate at any point of time. Everyone is looking for an ROI. Company is looking for an ROI. Distributor is also looking for an ROI. Both are in businesses. It has to be a win-win kind of agreement, where the distributor decides, okay, I need to make X percent. It can be 10, 12, 15, 16, depending on the category, depending on the market. Based on that, we can work backward on how much the distributor can fund. If the distributor can fund everything, then great. The company will say, okay, I will give you only X percent margin. Please fund all these costs to do this. If the distributor says, no, it's too much because you expect me to go to all the deep rural pockets and I cannot spend so much, then I'm sure their companies will say that, okay, we will pitch in 3%, 4%, or whatever that number is, to make sure that the earning model of both the company and the distributor is not negatively impacted, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to make a loss, right? So I think that's how I would answer both the questions. There's no really perfect answer to either of them.
Harshit, there are two questions for you. One from Ashish, as to what are the challenges and resistance that one faces when you're trying to digitalize the channel from channel partners, and what is possibly recommended ways of overcoming those challenges. And there is somebody who is Amanda, who is asking, can you explain any features in Bizom for Salesforce? What kind of data we should provide? So one is around what are the challenges around digitalization of your business, and the other one is specific to what are some of the key features of Bizom for Salesforce.
Regarding digitalization of channel, I think Binayak and Ricky would be better suitable to answer them because they directly work with the distributors. But having worked with a few of the brands over here, what I've realized is the distributors in Indonesia are huge. They are like at least in the main island, they are very big distributors. And the key over here, if you want to succeed, is that our system should be integrated with their system. That is going to be the key for any FMCG brands. If they're using their system, that system needs to be integrated with their distributor system. And coming to the Bizom key feature, it's like one of the key features that I would put is giving real-time access, real-time data access to in the hands of sales team. That is one of the key USP of Bizom, and it works, very smoothly. We call something like a Pathway Pass app. So even a person who is not very educated can use it very efficiently without any of training that needs to be given to that person. So that is one, USP of Bizom.
So maybe I'll pass the first question around challenges to digitalization to Ricky.
Yeah, so I guess in my perspective right now is basically Indonesia is GT, right? So again, we are not only talking the objective how to digitalize the retailer, because on the other hand is basically we talk about the infrastructure itself, because it's not having the same availability for the whole part of the Indonesia about the infrastructure itself. Number two is this is like change the culture, right? So having said that, even on the primary city, a big retailer is not easy to convert and how to use the the technology or how to digitalize that. The simple one is basically, in my experience, is how to engage with the big wholesaler as community of the wholesaler. Being said that, at that time, in my experience, when we are connect with them, it's just like like a euphoria, but on the first time. After that, the challenge is basically how to ensure that they will use that one, and they are really realize and feel that the technology will help them to operate the business. Because at the end of the day, retailer different PIC, and then the product is also different. I guess there is the challenge right now. Even when I trying to using technology or even platform when we are doing on COVID, many retailer, even when we give them support or even promotion, when they are expecting to put the order in the platform, I guess the challenge is very less actually. So there is the challenge, I guess, because only one principle, and then they need another list of product. So maybe the one that I understand as a retailer, they want to coming to the one, and then they will find all the things, all the product that they need. Actually, it's not only from the one principle.
So there have been two more challenges that have been flagged off in the chat. One is a question: is transportation, other than transportation, what are the other challenges of the FMCG business in Indonesia? And there's another point which is raised, that given the multi-layer structure from company to distributor to wholesaler to retailer, how does pricing stability play a role in this entire multi-layered route to consumer?
So, okay. So the question, if we talk about the transportation, basically there are two parts basically in Indonesia regarding to the logistic transportation. One is truck, another part is ship. For the truck, basically we talk only about the Java Island, because the infrastructure is there and the player is there. I mean, many agency of the transportation is there. So the competitiveness of price is there. The other part is basically for the sea. I mean, for the ship, because it's really depending on the schedule and also the infrastructure for the area that we are willing to deliver the product, because the port itself is quite challenged, because some area is basically not on the near of the the distributor, but far away from the distributor. So that's why the sea is more expensive rather than truck basically. The second one is basically for the layer of the price. I guess this is again what, like Binayak said, always that is depends on how the FMCG company want to drive the market. But the one that I understand is basically from the distributor and then the wholesaler and the retailer usually will have a certain threshold as a gap. So that's why the middle one, I mean the semi-grocer or the grocer, will able to sell the product also to the retailer, and also the retailer will also have a proper price, so they can sell the product with the magic price that still affordable for the consumer. Maybe in my experience, different category will be different, but for fast moving product like dairy or like a food and beverage, usually they will put the range is basically around 2 until 4%, right? And for the retailer will be something like 2%, because they will put higher prices as a consumer buying price.
Okay, we have a lot of interesting questions left. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. So I'm just taking one last question, which possibly is the most interesting question, and I'll shoot it towards Binayak's end. What do you think would be the estimated growth of the FMCG sector for Indonesia this year?
I think very difficult for me to answer, but I would probably guess that it should be towards high single digit. That would be my estimate.
Very guarded, but I guess that is what's likely to be the reality. I'm sure different people have different views. Ricky, do you have a different number than that?
Yeah, so like Binayak said that, okay, so if we talk about food, I guess, I mean for total FMCG company, I guess it's still in single digit. I'm trying to communicate with my friend also as a FMCG player. He said that 2023 is very very optimistic, but they still trying to set up as a growth target is a single digit. But I guess for the for the beverage itself, because we have a specific occasion in Indonesia, Lebaran and Puasa, I guess, yeah, more or less still 10-12%. The challenge is basically only on non-food, personal care, home care, something like that. I don't know, Binayak, but the one that I understand from the previous company and even the current situation is basically non-food is very struggling. Beverage is quite okay, but food is still, yeah, stay the same.
Yeah, so if I may take a sort of conclusion from this say forecast or looking into the future, I think what I'm hearing clearly is that Indonesia has been a robust economy. It is quite value conscious, but yet there's opportunity for growth. And I think some of the key levers for extracting the best opportunity in a competitive framework would be to leverage technology, which has now been rapidly adopted both by consumers, trade partners, and obviously the FMCG players have always been at the forefront of that. And I think if one were to look at what is the best way to arm oneself as you go into the marketplace, both for the FMCG players and for the trade partners, would be to leverage the best that data and technology can offer. We have curated a guide for the Indonesian market, which will be mailed to all the participants shortly. Thank you very much for attending this webinar, and we look forward to having you with us for our future webinars. And thank you, Harshit. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Binayak, for your time, for your invaluable time, and for your very, very interesting perspectives and viewpoints, which I'm sure all the audience has really gained from. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.